elements of the iceberg. Most spoken about, probably not much action as one would expect. But thank you. If we could move on to Ratnesh from Dear Master Healthcare. Dear Master Healthcare has been in the news very recently and for the last year or so for the aggressive plans you have as an organization, expanding the network, bringing in just new things to the healthcare industry. How is the HR team working to go beneath the surface to make sure that we get the basics right and we unearth the unknown?
See, sometimes when you're in an industry which is as nascent as healthcare, it works to your advantage. So healthcare industry as such, from an HR infrastructure standpoint is very, very nascent, unlike any other mature industry such as manufacturing or telecom or IT. So that gives you a huge play to do a lot of stuff. That is one. Second is, with due regards, this region by itself, largely our Middle East and Gulf region, vis-a-vis many of the HR practices and processes and systems and frameworks, there's still a lot which is desired, lots to be done. So it gives you a double advantage. One is advantage of the region and second advantage of the industry. So our focus largely has been, we are close to $1 billion organization, about 14,000 plus 2,500 through a second party or third party contract for 16,000 plus employees. We have already started to put our systems and processes together to build an organization. It will be 40,000, 50,000 employee organization in the next year's time. So right from various initiatives such as making your structures right, which can support the future growth, to having systems and processes and framework which can handle so many more transactions, so many more employees. How do we take HR service delivery closer to the line managers and therefore making HR, so to say, more effective when it comes to people touch? How do we create frameworks where an employee self-service goes to a very different level, wherein all the transactions are largely handled by the employees and the managers themselves, and wherein HR largely comes in as a subject matter expert to do what is right, to get the right talent in the organization, to make the right investment into developing people, and to make the right investments in keeping people motivated and engaged. So largely our focus is that over next 1 to 2 to 3 years time, build an HR infrastructure which will support at least 4 or 5 times to what we are.
Thank you for sharing that, Ratnesh. Moving on to our next panelist, Ahmed from Oracle. A global brand, an appeal in itself. Most of us would like to believe that your team members aspire to be part of the Oracle team. Beyond just depending on that brand appeal, what is the leadership team and the HR leadership doing to create something really special for those who aspire to be part of your organization?
Sure. So in Oracle, we really focus on what we call employee life cycle. So it's from the minute we acquire you as a talent, search out for the talent, to the minute you come into the organization, into looking at your capabilities, developing your capabilities, and then finding the right opportunities for you to grow. So for example, Fusion is a talent management tool that we have. And it's so simple that it has broken all the boundaries, all the geographical boundaries. So it's all the information is there on the tool, visible for everyone. So it's at your hands to be able to promote yourself internally for any opportunities within the organization regardless of the location. In terms of development, it's in your own hands. So all the tools are there available for you. What we have, the 20-80 principles. So 20% is the classroom traditional trainings and 80% is what we call on the job. And that would have various types of engagement, whether it's coaching, mentoring, or stretch assignments. So it's all this type of engagement where we focus on, and then we move into what we call regional talent review boards, where we expose the talent to the different business together, and we do this all the way to the level of the countries, not just the region. So it's this type of experience and journey that we would like all our employees to experience.
Thank you very much for sharing the inside story, Ahmed.
In fact, just to add to Ahmed, in fact, one of the stuff that we are doing from an infrastructure standpoint is we are also implementing Oracle Fusion group-wide across all 9 countries. So we are also implementing Oracle Fusion.
Sorry, can you give me the mic because I can't hear?
So
Can you?
Rakesh is saying that we, as a group, DM Aster is also implementing the Oracle infrastructure internally.
Fusion, Oracle Fusion.
Fusion.
We implement Fusion?
Oracle
We are-
Yes?
is being deployed internally.
Ah, okay. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the questions. Okay.
So you have a client right up here.
Great. Then I can share my experience then.
All right, thank you. Moving on. Before we move on to our next panelist, ladies and gentlemen, we may have 5 to 6 minutes of questions. If you do have a question for any of our panelists with regard to what organizations are doing to pay attention to the hidden iceberg, please frame your questions. We may take 1 or 2 towards the end of this discussion. Thank you. Moving on to Rajnikant, in your experience as a leader of a consulting firm, leadership and HR, what example could you share with us of a client that missed that hidden part of the iceberg? What were the consequences?
Yeah, so we do a lot of training interventions on leadership, and many times training interventions are more considered as transactional, where there's a training happening for 2 days. At the end of the 2 days, everybody are very happy and motivated. After 3 days, everybody forgets the learning from the programs. So I think the important part of any training intervention or a leadership intervention is to bring those learnings as a part of the culture of the organization. So all of our programs are scheduled as 3 parts. One, do we do enough pre-work in order to study about the organization? Second, a lot of involvement in terms of the on-the-job training. The last part is followed by a post-coaching assignment. So after you attend a program and then you have 1 month of time to implement the learnings from the program, this is followed with a project where people start implementing the learnings from the project. Because we really believe that you can give skills, they become intellectual. You give opportunities for them to really implement those skills, only then they become intelligent. So our journey is to really transform organizations from being intellectual organizations to become intelligent organizations. So followed with a very, very strong post-coaching, and the relationship between the trainer and the trainee should last for a long time until the trainees can implement the learnings from those programs. So we stay with them for a long time.
Thank you, Rajnikant. Moving on to Akram. With your view, Akram, as chairman of MCN, what stories, and I'm sure you may have many of them, could you share with us which highlights the importance of organizations spending time to really go beneath the surface?
I'd like to just talk about the experience we had, and it's a true story. It happened in 1990 during the Gulf War, and we hit the iceberg. We actually hit the iceberg. The Gulf was astray. We were all lost. We didn't know what to do. Businesses were all under a threat of at least 1 year of war, a war that engaged all the Gulf. And especially in my business, which is advertising, we just felt useless. And again, I'm just saying the story because I tell you, attitude is at the base of everything. And of course, if you're not ready to change, you're not able to face the change. And at that time, we really had nothing else to do except to fire everybody or to close the company. And we decided that we talked to our staff and we said, please take it easy with us. We've hit an iceberg and we need to really rethink of what to do. So clients didn't really want to spend. We had to really make them spend, if you like. We had to motivate them. We had to create the need for them and a situation where they needed to promote their business. Why would you promote a business in war? One of our biggest clients at the time was a client called Kuwait Airways. Kuwait has succeeded in getting most of their planes. I think they lost only 1 plane in Kuwait that was hit by the Iraqi army. And they immigrated all their planes between Bahrain and London. So the client was a very, very close friend of mine. I flew to see him in London, and I said to him, why should we keep these planes? And that was, of course, after a lot of thought, that if I can get Kuwait Airways to be busy, maybe they'll give us some advertising work, which we did later on with some of other clients like BMW, etc., etc. BMW, we said, in case of danger, the fastest car to run away with, for example. So anyway, the story goes that I sat with them and I said, let's employ the planes. He said, what do you mean employ the planes? We have no airport. I said, yes, but you have many countries that would give you an airport. You would have many countries that will say, why don't you use our airport to operate your plane? And he said, well, that's a great idea. Without fail, within 5 days, we were flying between Bahrain. I consider myself with my client as one, always. We were flying from Bahrain to Kuwait, and from Kuwait to London. And we created a great campaign for him, which we won many awards for. And I don't have the visuals, but you can visualize it when you see it. We just put a beautiful picture of a plane, and it's a Kuwaiti Airlines plane, and we said, until we're able to welcome you home, welcome aboard to London and to Cairo. That was a moment where he cried and I cried, and I tell you, it was an incredible experience. First of all, it saved my agency. We were still extremely young at the time. We were about 150 people. Now we're about 4,000 people, I think. But what was more important than anything else, no despair. No despair. Did we read that the iceberg was there? Probably we did smell it at least. Were we ready to do anything about it? I don't think so. So anyway, I think you're all capable people, and I think Dubai is a fantastic place to face challenges from. So I'm not worried. I think even if we hit an iceberg, we'll manage. Thank you.
Thank you, Akram, for sharing that story and insight. Moving on to Dr. Anand Menon from Excellence Plus. Based on your long-term experience with developing performance, what do you see as the challenge to be overcome by especially the SMEs to grow their human capital ROI, return on investment?
Okay, firstly, Akram, great story there. Right. The biggest challenge that I see after having worked with a lot of corporates, a lot of SMEs, is I think very simply in this part of the world, a lot of companies are focusing more on efficiency when they should be focusing on effectiveness. And we need to really understand the difference between the two, because it's the difference between becoming a good company and becoming a long-term successful company. Efficiency is simply doing things right. And this is where a lot of our energy is being focused through systems, processes, audits, software, these kind of things. Effectiveness is doing the right thing and doing those things right. I think this is where the biggest challenge lies right now. So maybe a story that everyone is familiar with will help. It's about the goose that lays the golden eggs. See, we have this farmer, poor man, down on his luck and has a pet goose. Wakes up one morning and finds a golden egg. Now the farmer gets excited because he gets rich very quickly. And then the next day a second egg, and then a third, and then a fourth. And he's very, very rich, but he wants all the gold. So what does the farmer do? He takes a knife, slices open the belly of the goose, pushes his hand inside, and gets what? Nothing. In this little story is the whole essence of effectiveness. Effectiveness, and especially for the SMEs, is really critical because we don't have the big budgets. We don't have the international brand positioning. We don't have the legacy of 40, 50, 70, 80 years behind us. So we don't have a lot of that to back us and pull us through difficult times. We need to become really effective in what we do. So in this little story is the essence of effectiveness. Effectiveness is essentially two things. One, it is production capability, the health of the goose. Second, it is the golden eggs, which is your performance excellence, your results. So maybe a couple of examples and we bring this into business. Look at the car that you drive. What's going to happen if you push that car to go from point A to point B? You push it every day, every week, every month, and you do absolutely nothing to service the car or replace the parts that need to be serviced. You keep pushing it because you need to get from point A to point B. That's the golden egg. And that is the challenge today the SMEs are facing, because they're going for the result, But when they're going for the result, they are not taking care of the health of the goose. What will happen to that car? Your car, the goose will die. Look at your own body. You work 10, 12 hours a day, 14 hours in some cases. You go out, you party, you entertain, you shop for 5 to 6 hours a day, sleep barely 3 to 4 hours a day. You don't have a good exercise regime, a proper diet, less sleep. What's going to happen? The goose will die because we're going for the golden eggs. Organizations today are doing the same thing. They're focusing on the result. I want the golden eggs. And in focusing on the eggs, we are not taking care of the production capability, which is the health and the skill of our people. And the reason for this is very simple. If you look at leadership today, the focus seems to be on microscopic leadership when it should be on telescopic leadership. And what's the difference between the two? With a microscope, you look at something that's actually very small, and you blow it out of proportion so that it looks big, and you put all your energy, effort, and time on something which is in reality small. You just make it big and it gets your attention. A telescopic focus is when you look at something that's really big. It looks small because it might be in the distance, but it's really big. And you look at something that is big and you make it even bigger in the now with the telescope. That's your long-term focus. The SMEs should not be thinking of surviving the next 3-6 months. They should be looking at where they're going to be 10 years from now. And it's their people who are going to get them there. So this is the challenge that I see right now. It's more in terms of moving away from efficiency towards effectiveness.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you, gentlemen. We've got about 7 minutes to the hour and lunch. And we appreciate the short, sharp, insightful responses to the questions. We'll move over to our audience. Is there anybody? We've got one. Is there anyone else who'd like a question for our panelists? We've got 2. All right, so we'll take 2 questions.
It's about below the iceberg. There's deeper issues, there's deeper things going on with people in their minds. You're not in control of their mind or their emotions. So regardless of what we do in terms of training and coaching, on the field, training out the field, doesn't matter what training we give them, and all these HR areas, we're not really in control. I'm challenging what you're saying. And number 2, linked with expatriates in this country, can we really retain top talent for the long term? For those of you who are in your companies who are not owners, how long have you been with your company? How long are you looking to stay in your present company? Is your CV out there right now? I'm just challenging what you're saying.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'd like to go for that now.
We'll take the 3 panelists, and just to keep on time, we'll probably take it at 90 seconds each, and the buzzer will go. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, great question, by the way. I think the starting point for answering this is yes, going below the iceberg. You see, in a lot of organizations, the intent is correct, and there's a lot of effort being put. We end up telling people what they need to do and how they need to do it. That's where all the training and the systems and all of that comes in. So everybody knows what they have to do. They even know how they have to do it. But very, very few companies actually communicate why we need to do it in the first place. Passion comes from the why. The why is not very well articulated in your company. Go back to your own company and try this. Pick up your top 5 performers and ask them, why do we even do what we do? And passion comes from why. Passion makes people stay on the ship when everybody deserts it. Because skill is easy to develop, but your skill can take you places where your heart won't keep you. And when things get rough, or when attractive opportunities come up there, what's going to wake you up in the morning and keep you on the ship? It's going to be heart, it's not going to be skill. So maybe if we move into the thinking, which is why we do what we do, it will help. By the way, that's how you should do your recruitment as well. Only bring in people who even understand why you do what you do in the first place. Longevity will go up with that. That's just one answer.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Moving on to Akram.
No, just briefly, I think whether there is an iceberg or not, the subjects you've talked about are essential in every business. Review of ourselves and our colleagues is almost an essential part of the everyday business. You do it every day, and we have to do it, and we have to have a scientific approach to it to be able to survive. Because as you know, whether there is a global iceberg or an iceberg for each business, still there are challenges, and these challenges will always be there.
Thank you, Akram. Moving on to our final panelist for this question.
Just to answer it straight, I think everybody's mind has what is in it for them. And growth is a very important factor for them. If we're able to explain the meaning of growth to each and every aspect of the employees, I think we are done. But what is growth? Is money growth? Probably not. Is promotion growth? Probably not. Is title growth? Probably not. Is experience growth? Probably not. Growth in real terms is like a tree. The tree is actually growing big. It's able to contribute better. It's able to take more responsibilities. So if we can explain these two words, growth is wider contribution and higher responsibility. And if each employee in the organization takes that, I think the organization will grow.
Thank you, Rajnikant. We move on to the final question, the second and final question.
Hi everyone. During my research, I came across this model, which is WICS model, Wisdom, Intelligence and Creativity. So my question here is, do you see the organization investing on an individual's creativity and utilize their creativity in the long run?
All right, thank you for your question. And just to keep it open to all panelists, can we request the other three panelists to take the question, please?
Didn't hear the question again, I'm sorry.
Okay, can you repeat the question, please?
It's very hard to hear.
My question is, individuals' creativity in an organization, will it be utilized in the long run? And would organization invest on creativity and not just on the intelligence?
So are organizations today investing on creativity and not just intelligence?
Yes.
All right, thank you for your question. We'll open it to the other three panelists.
Okay,
Sure.
okay,
Go ahead.
I would like to answer your question. Now the organizations are moving in defining what is talent. They're not only talking about the competencies. Every organization, particularly the SMEs or even the corporates, are defining what is talent. Is talent common to all? No. So there is a lot of creativity involved into it. People look into the talent with the creativity.